Life is a journey from beginning to end that is meant to be cherished and lived to the fullest at every stage and in every season. End of life can be beautiful and sacred when you plan and embrace it as a family. At Solistic Hospice, we provide soulful, compassionate, and professional care. Call today and learn more about what hospice care really is. The Solistic way.
When investigating a group like the GCCA, one of the first things you have to ask yourself is, how does it stay afloat? Finding the money to keep over 100 people alive, including children and the elderly, is no small feat. I've heard from a number of people that the one bona fide moneymaker in the GCCA's stable of cottage industries is Solistic Hospice. According to federal tax records, Solistic claimed over $4.8 million in program revenue in 2017 and over $5 million the year before that. In this latest episode, we're going to start by looking at the hospice and at healthcare in the community in general. We're also going to explore the strange connection between the GCCA and another cult that peaked in the 1980s, Synanon. And we'll learn how Sanskrita finally escaped. But first we're going to speak again with Dave from the last episode. Dave was in the community when the hospice was founded.
I was legally married to Ollie Goodman, who started the hospice. She's an RN, registered nurse, from New Zealand. And she came down early when we were first moving the community. She went ahead and started working for a hospice company down out of Tucson or something. And then we started our own company, and she really helped spearhead that and ended up becoming the director. And that apparently became the big money maker for the community while I was there. And then after I left, it really took off.
Do you know much about kind of the reason that they decided to get into this business?
Yeah, I think they found a way to make a lot of money, tax-free or a way to move a lot of money very cheaply, because they had personnel, their own volunteer personnel, who donate all their income to the community, and in that area of southern Arizona, in Green Valley in particular, and there's a few other areas right around there south of Tucson, it's a huge retirement community and a retirement area, a real ripe area to prey on vulnerable people in that state with a hospice program, which can move a lot of money through Medicare.
I have a vision that health care will be free to all who need it. Hallelujah. That you don't die of things because you don't have the money to pay for it. For proper health care should be a gift by governments to all the people in that government's constituency. I have a vision that the Solistic Medical Institute becomes the planetary parent healing institute for all families of the earth, becoming a global school for healing of soul, mind, and body.
Ollie Goodman is one of the founders of the hospice. In April 2017, she and her husband posted a video to YouTube as part of a GoFundMe fundraising campaign. In the video, the couple stands in front of a tree and explains a bit about themselves and their life.
We're both ordained ministers, and we're religious order workers, which means that we serve humanity similar to a missionary, which also means that we do not receive an income. We do receive room and board and a small stipend each week.
So we have been married now for 2 years, and we've been knowing each other for 7. And we definitely would like to have some children together. But unfortunately, in my early 20s, I had a vasectomy which was definitely the biggest mistake in my life.
Olidy's profile on the Solistic Hospice website lists her as the Director of Clinical Services. According to Glassdoor, the average base pay for someone with that title is in the $80,000 range. And yet, when faced with the cost of a $7,000 vasectomy reversal, the couple has to go to strangers on the internet to find the money.
I am in my mid-40s now and my clock is ticking, so time is of the essence, and we would like to get a vasectomy reversal as soon as possible so we could try and bring a beautiful child into this world.
Landau, formerly known as Patrick Lawrence, is another of the hospice's founders. He left the GCCA in 2019 and currently resides in Texas. Landau is featured in this 2017 video by the GCCA.
Helium actually is the stabilizing point between hydrogen and oxygen that we know of as creating water. And that is why it's causing so much confusion out there, because no one believes in the Creator. They don't believe in the Creator Son. They don't believe that these elements in the cosmos are changing due to the changing consciousness and those things coming that haven't been out there before.
As is typical of most of Gabriel's videos, this one is an odd jumble of Urantia book and other New Age end times ideas, with some jargon thrown in what can only be a lame attempt at sounding somewhat scientific.
And in a dual universe such as ours, you begin to see how there are two of them manifest. The hydrogen and hydrogen prime acting as the father-son unit, and the oxygen acting as the mother unit. If we were able to use continuing fifth epical revelation in more appropriate ways, we could totally rewrite the education about the elements and how much it is being distorted. And all the things they think they are seeing out there of helium is not really what they're seeing. They are seeing the upstepping of creation and the activities of God.
In addition to being one of the founders of Solistic Hospice, Landau was the community's in-house medical doctor until he left in 2019.
Landau is a very interesting person. He's very energetic and very fast. He comes off as being on 20 cups of coffee. He's a cool guy, but according to professional standards, not up to it. So he would not give prescriptions, just over the counter kind of stuff. It was hard to get an appointment with him. And I understand there were a lot of people that had many more serious matters than myself, so it wasn't a big deal. But I did hear from other people, and upon leaving, now know other stories about how people were not cared for at all.
Jackie, who we met in episode 3, has her own horror stories about community health care, or the lack of it.
No, they were not getting regular medical care at all. And Landau, I'm sorry, I know he has an MD, but he was not a good doctor. He, at one point, my daughter and I had these terrible ear infections. For one thing, getting sick, that was your fault because you were bad, right? You were somehow spiritually, not good enough. So that's why you got sick. At one point, my daughter it's the worst fever I've ever seen in a child. She had a fever 105, to the point where we were putting her in the bath, the slightly lukewarm bath, and still we're not going to the hospital.
In addition to playing the keyboard in Gabriel's band, Jackie worked in his office. She saw not only how Gabriel's family lived and how this differed from the lives of his followers, she also saw how healthcare was doled out in the community.
Some people could go to the dentist and some people didn't. When I had to tell Flan, an elderly man, that he couldn't go to the dentist because that was one that was denied, he was really upset. Why can't I go? I haven't been to the dentist for a long time. And I'm just I don't know. They just said you couldn't, unless you had a some urgent situation, like the funds are so tight right now. Basically, like unless you were in horrible pain, you can't go to the dentist. I think he just wanted to get a cleaning or checkup or something. But it's all very, it's all like a hierarchy. You don't get to decide if you go to the dentist or not. You don't get to decide who your doctor is. You don't get to decide if you get to have decent care or not, or if your daughter gets to almost be killed from a high fever. Like, you don't have control over any of that. So you just have to accept like whatever tiny crumbs of care come your way. And most people are not even going to ask. Like Flan, to write the form to say, I want to go to the dentist would be like a thing. Like, to even ask for anything would be a major thing.
One of the most extreme examples of alleged neglect that I know about concerns a character with the cosmic name Nod.
Yeah, it's a big crazy story, but he used to be an elder, and he was considered the Apostle John, and all these other legendary figures and so forth. But then, and he got diminished more and more and more into, really put under the thumb more and more and more. And he was, when I was there, they were telling him he had to make all these like public confessions and write, all this stuff, and just terrible.
Nod, whose legal name was John Thurston, detailed his experiences in an article he wrote in 2007 for the Red Rock News in Sedona. In the story, Nod describes collapsing during a Sunday religious service. Before this, he says that he had experienced a series of dizzy spells and blackouts. Landau was aware of all of this, yet Nod was required to continue manual labor. Eventually, Nod would see a cardiologist, and this led to heart surgery. At the time, Landau advised him against the surgery, even though the cardiologist explained that without it, he was unlikely to last another 6 months. It was also around this time that Nod was diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer by a urologist. Again, Landau advised him to do nothing, despite the fact that he had a dangerously high PSA level, and that any delay in treatment would have serious health consequences.
It appeared like they basically wanted him to die, and he eventually left then, but it was just terrible what they were doing to him. But Gabriel hated him, and so it makes sense. It's very understandable why he was treated like that.
These allegations, if true, are symptoms of the spiritual authoritarianism that lie at the heart of Gabriel's philosophy. In his Revelations, the Cosmic Family volumes, Gabriel describes a hierarchy that begins with God, descends through the highest beings in the universe, then moves downward to the planet Earth. On this planet, which he calls Urantia, Gabriel is the boss. Your spiritual ranking, which is determined by Gabriel, dictates who you get to partner with and who makes decisions for you, including medical decisions. Rejecting Gabriel's authority puts you in a spiritual state that he calls rebellion.
But I just wanna be your friend. I just want you to know me. I don't wanna be your enemy. 'Cause oh, I love you so. Oh, I love you so. Oh, I love you so, my friend. I'm so glad God made you.
When I visited Avalon in April of 2019, I attended a very long, very boring church service that included conspiracy theory videos, readings from the Urantia book, and the singing of a birthday song that Gabriel wrote. Oddly enough, this Cosmo birthday tune didn't actually include the word birthday anywhere.
I'm so glad God made you. I'm so glad you're here. You're unique and beautiful, and oh, I love you so. Oh, I love you so. Oh, I love
Yeah, this was sharing a little bit about our appreciation for Elder Mariah here.
There was also an hour or so where community members were encouraged to pay tribute to Mariah Cunningham, an elder in the community and the executive director of Solistic Hospice. Mariah began her life as Linda Lou Waite, daughter of Harold and Erla in Dallas, Texas in 1943. She received her PhD in psychology from the University of Texas at Austin and was a professor and psychotherapist at UC Berkeley.
The psychologist leading the group says she left her husband and family to join Gabriel, and it worked for her life.
I came to a place where I realized that I really wanted to be with someone that was my spiritual leader.
Mariah's bio on the Solistic Hospice website leaves out her tenure in the California rehab cult, Synanon, in the 1970s and 80s. Its boisterous founder, who died in 1997, was an alcoholic named Chuck Dieterich.
Besides Chuck Dieterich being dysfunctional at the end, money was the main thing, and so it really divided the community, and people stopped wanting to take care of dope fiends, and it really moved into a financial organization of people living in community. Mm-hmm. But there was a disparity in who made the money and who didn't.
Laura Johnston Cole was at Synanon for 10 years, starting in 1980, and she knows a thing or two about cults. In the 70s, she was a member of People's Temple. In fact, she managed to leave Jonestown shortly before the mass murder-suicide of Jones's 900-plus followers in Guyana in November 1978. Here, Laura refers to Mariah by her name at the time, Linda.
Linda was one of the people who took me under her wing in a way. She was somebody who looked out for me. Mm-hmm. And I think also behind the scenes, not even when I was quite so aware of what was going on, I think she was someone who looked out for me to try and make sure I got what I needed.
So you would call Synanon a cult?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whenever you have a cult, there's this huge amount of information that you don't have any clue about. Mm-hmm. And even if you have a clue about one part of it, you only have a clue up to the first closed door, and then you don't have a clue. With both People's Temple and Synanon, now that it's all over and people are able to speak freely and mm-hmm. people are thinking about what they saw and didn't see, I mean, there were great atrocities in both Synanon and People's Temple that were, you know, way, like, not addressed.
Right.
That's just a disclaimer saying that cults suck.
And against all reason, today the Jonestown story got much worse.
Come on, Laura. Goddamn, when you say something, speak up shit.
I talk too much. I should be absolutely quiet because I know I try to be too bossy.
I don't see why you can't
Put your hands down.
Shut. I don't know you're saying anything.
How come you can't keep your mouth shut and do your work? Huh? How come you can't?
Well, you like to beat on? We don't like to see it. You're at the goddamn middle of the night, midnight.
I know.
What is it? What is your trip? Do you think it's going to get by? Don't you think somebody's going to report it?
Since 1993, according to the GCCA website, Mariah's time has been spent as a minister working to develop methodologies of social coherence and conflict resolution. We're familiar with a couple of these methodologies already: the Personality, Integration, and Rehabilitation Program, and the CHIP game. Next, we'll hear from Gabriel's daughter Sanskrita about the role that mandatory counseling plays in the community.
Yeah, one of my conflicts there was, my inner conflicts was their idea of what a minister was. Because, you know, I will say that the Urantia book, I think, is a monumental, beautiful book. And I, growing up reading it, really seriously took to heart, especially the Jesus teachings. And I thought being a minister, my idea of being a minister was like uplifting people, especially uplifting people, empowering people, like inspiring them to like serve God, to serve others, to love life, to love themselves. Like to me, it was really that simple. Like that's what a minister is. Like they caretake other people in the most loving, nurturing way possible. However, the idea of a minister there is that and confronting people, sitting them down and like showing them their wayward ways. But it was like a very like disciplinary, kind of like off-putting is the word again. But also just made you feel small, made you feel like horrid, made you feel like dark and like something was just inherently wrong with you. This to me is not uplifting. This to me is keeping someone in control. It's a control thing. And all the ministers there, also it's a power trip. And I felt like the ministers there fluctuated between that wanting to be the true Jesus-like ministry and then having these power trips over other people. And that really, I really struggled with that. I honestly didn't want to become a minister there. I tried, and I realized really quickly that I had to play a game that I didn't want to play.
Greg Voland is a former GCCA member living in Cottonwood, Arizona, about 20 miles southwest of Sedona.
I think when Mariah came, she's a head counselor. I don't remember what year that was. When she became, the head counselor, and then it just the whole system became more evolved as time went by, and so it went from being kind of a ragtag bunch of doing whatever to being more monitored and controlled. And then that period of time, they just slowly established more household controls, and any problems that the people had, then they made reports to the counselor at that point it came, and then they'd be called in to deal with whatever issues. So they developed a chain of command, and they established these people in various levels of authority. And so that's kind of how it slowly developed. We're from households to head of households to basically chain of commands, and then they eventually went to this chip game where basically members were made to directly confront whatever they saw as being whatever particular issue was, and then they have to fill out papers, give chips, of which all the paperwork then went directly to the counselors, and that way they'd have basically, through the mail, through the paper, details of every interaction going on with any particular member virtually every day.
Do you remember when this stuff was happening, when like she joined and then the counseling and stuff started? Do you remember, like, did the community think that this was like a good thing, or did they kind of realize right away that it was more of a control mechanism?
I think for some of us, the headstrong individuals, which I guess I'd be part of one of those, the more independent ones probably had a greater issue with it. The ones who were more leaning towards for the good and were easy to kind of, follow the course didn't have a problem with it. I personally had a problem with it, of course. And I think most of the ones that had problems with it probably aren't there today.
Spirit Steps Tours offers an incomparable choice of educational and enlightening experiences for the seeking sojourner and eco-tourist. Our tours are conducted in air-conditioned vehicles for you and your group's comfort. In and around Tubac, we offer pedicab services and tours. Take a ride down the block, a tour around town, or an extended guided excursion in these environmentally friendly modern-day rickshaws. Tubac Village is a dynamic community.
In addition to the hospice, Gabriel of Urantia controls a number of other money-making enterprises, including a day spa, a realty company, and Spirit Steps Tours, which bills itself as the first tour company in the world to give its customers the highest quality spiritual information about vortexes. With all these side hustles, it's hard to tell exactly how much money the community is making. In 1996, the GCCA disclosed over $900,000 in assets. In 2008, that number had increased to $22 million. and one assumes that the trend has continued upwards over the last decade. According to tax records for Pima, Santa Cruz, and Yavapai counties, the conservative estimate of the cult's real estate holdings would add up to over $10 million. With all these money-making ventures under the GCCA umbrella, everybody is put to work, even the guru's family. When Sanskrita was 28, she left the compound to go to massage school.
I met somebody, not at the massage school, but at a clinic 2 nights a week, and I would stay in Tucson with the community member at one of their houses in Tucson. Always with somebody. And the restaurant we would eat at frequently was a place that is a family-run restaurant. And they had a friend there that night who was visiting from Washington, D.C. And, you know, he seemed kind of cool at the time. It kind of had initially like an attraction towards each other, but that kind of quickly dispelled. But we kind of talked a little bit here and there. The biggest thing is that he ended up offering me a plane ticket to Washington, D.C.
Did you tell him about, like, I live in this
absolutely.
community?
And I even told him, like, no way, I'll never do that. Like, I will not accept that offer. And he was like, you need to do it now. He's like, if you think about it too much, you will never do it. I just prayed and I said, well, show me some signs if you want to God. And a lot of things happened really rapidly.
What kind of stuff?
Well, first I started noticing how unhappy my family was, like really how unhappy they were. I noticed how my dad was just losing it. Like he's just every day was just so more and more angry. And the way he treated one of the ladies, the older ladies who came and helped clean, who'd been there for years, the way he treated her was just despicable. And it really shocked me. And then in that same time is when they decided to take away my internet privileges and my phone and my laptop. And so yeah, they gave me a flip phone. And that's how I was trying to text this person in Washington, D.C. It was really funny. It was really hard to do it on the flip phone. But I eventually, he connected with the lady from the restaurant, and I finally called her, and she came and picked me up at the spot that we had allocated. As soon as I woke up in the morning, about 8 a.m., they started calling me incessantly, and I was way too freaked out, so I didn't pick up the phone. So there was just tons of voicemails left, and I did listen to the voicemails, some of them, not all of them, and they were just frantic. My brother sounded almost like he was like trying to calm down a rabid dog. He was like, Sanskrita, like, you need to stop this. Like he was like talking like, whoa, like slow down, like whoa, horse, like a wild like animal, like calm down. And my little sister, said I was going to kill my parents, that I would be the cause of their death and I would be the reason for their death. And that was really hard for me to hear. And there was like just a lot of like of different things. My dad had Paladin leave a voicemail. Paladin was the nicest of them, all of them. So yeah, so that I missed my flight at 7:30 in the morning. Slept in too much. The lady who was with me didn't like wake me up. She slept in. We missed our flight, and so I had to do standby, and then I had to do a layover, which I wasn't supposed to do with my first flight. So that was also a standby, and it was really nerve-wracking because I was absolutely terrified that I'd be stuck in the airport if I missed a standby. I almost did get stuck in the airport because the lady behind the second one was literally not going to call my name if like the last person was boarded and she was just going to let it happen. And I was like, yo, like, what about me? Like, and she's like, oh yeah, sorry, you can go in. And I was just like, wow, if I had not said anything, I'm sure I would have been missed. So the exhilarating moment happened when I got off the plane in Washington, D.C., and I was by myself in this huge city. I had never been by myself in anywhere like besides Tubac. And it was exhilarating, like absolutely like, wow, this is freedom. It was amazing. Right away, I kind of noticed he was odd. And I was like, oh God, I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. It just seemed like a ticket out. And I just took it. So yeah, he was like really nice for a week. And I stayed in his recording studio on this little bed. He had this little dog, Soul. was his name, and he used to come sleep with me. And he was so mad that the dog wanted to be with me and not him. He would like just barge into the room, pick up the dog, and walk out. Like that's how pissed off he was that the dog liked me more than him. And then he would slam the door and be like, keep that door shut so the dog doesn't come back in to see you. And he had told me all these things about what he did and, that he recording studio. When I came, he didn't have a job. He sat all day, like drinking Miller Lite and watching movies and doing nothing, absolutely nothing. He's just the most laziest person. Like, I was just really shocked. And I was like, wow, like he literally he doesn't have a job. And then his recording studio that I was staying in was dilapidated. Like there was just cords everywhere. Nothing was happened. Like nothing. Like I was just like, wow. Like okay, so something's not quite right about this story.
At one point, you felt like you left one cult and entered another, right?
Yeah. So about a week in, he actually just like told me that he was my spiritual teacher and I was a student. He called it the process, and there were levels. And he started he'd take away my phone and only give it to me when I went to work. He told me who I couldn't and could talk to. And he was very, very harsh. He would take me out in the car and scream at me for hours and slam his fist. And it was just violent, very angry. He'd actually say stuff like, I want to be your dad, or I want to have a cult like that. He was like jealous of my dad.
How did he get violent?
He got really drunk and started hitting my kidneys. And the dog bit him. And he kicked the dog away, and the dog scurried off. And and I was, then he pushed me into this wall thing that was structured, and it jarred, and it was hit my spine really bad, and I couldn't move for 2 days. I was really locked up and stuck and severe pain. And so I told Josh, I was communicating with Josh. I trusted Josh. I knew him my whole life. So I told him that I was, in a bad situation. He was already sniffing it out. And I returned to Arizona and stayed with Josh in Elgin, Arizona at this straw bale collective community. And that's kind of where we were we fell in love, got together, and I've been with him ever since.
Sanskrita is the love of my life, and my best friend and my partner. Sanskrita is Gabriel of Uranch's daughter, and she left the community. It's been almost 2 years now, and we've been together for 2 years almost. And she is the greatest joy in my life. And frankly, she's also the best karma for her father because she left. I admire her greatly for being able to be born in this microcosm of brainwashing and be able to be strong enough to stand up and say, this is not right.
And what of other ex-members? Are you in touch with them? Are you guys able to support each other or help each other?
When I was in the community, Gabriel always talked about the negative network, and I believed him. I thought that there was this whole network of individuals trying to stop us, and that it was basically funded by the devil himself, right? The devil's here to stop us. So Gabriel's always talking about this negative network and this vast sea of individuals trying to stop his mission, right? So when I left, I didn't want to talk to any ex-members. Well, about a year and a half in, I started thinking, man, I kind of want to know these people's stories. And so I did. I reached out. And I have reached out to every single member I can possibly think of. Talk to them about their story, what happened to them, how they've left, where they're at now. And so, Gabriel, I'm in contact with everybody, just so you know. And the negative network that you have talked about did not exist until you kicked me out. and I am the head of it, and I am coming for you. So prepare yourself, you fat little shit.
Thank you for checking out this latest episode of the So-Called Prophet from Pittsburgh. Be sure to follow us on Instagram or Twitter at Pittsburgh Prophet, and like, rate, review, do all that good stuff on iTunes. That's really helpful. This episode was written, recorded, and edited by yours truly, Joseph L. Flatley. If you'd like to get a hold of me, I can be reached through my website, lennyflatley.net.